Good afternoon, it's Friday, July 20. I'm Herman Green with the Midday News. If you're watching online at onespotmedia.com, a very special welcome to you. The prosecution is asserting that the trial judge in the murder case involving incarcerated entertainer Vybz Kartel and his co-accused was right in admitting digital evidence. Members of the defense argued this week that the digital evidence were contaminated and should not have been admitted. The defense team argued that the evidence was tampered or manipulated. These include text messages and video evidence. However, Assistant Director of Public Prosecutions, Orette Brown, said the evidence is still admissible even where there are gaps in continuity. He argued that there is no evidence to support the claim that the digital evidence was tampered with or manipulated. Now, Mr. Brown is making his submissions today, the final day of the appeal hearing. Senior Deputy Director of Public Prosecutions, Jeremy Taylor, is also expected to make submissions. A worrying trend, that's the phrase being used to define the level of corruption within public sector entities in Jamaica. Executive Director of the National Integrity Action, NIA, Professor Trevor Monroe, says the situation has now reached a terminal point where it can be termed a crisis.
You think I'm not talking about crisis proportions? You look at one statistic from the 2017 Latin American Public Opinion Project. Study of 20 countries across the hemisphere. The question was asked in each of those countries of a representative sample. Do you believe, do you support military takeover to deal with high levels of crime and corruption? Jamaica was at the top of the list of those countries.
He says that decision by the group shows the rampant decrease of trust in the Jamaican government. But Professor Monroe says the level of corruption and malpractice that has been uncovered at the state-owned oil refinery Petrojam provides a point where the government can start to address the decline in public trust and corruption.
But Petrojam provides an opportunity, a focal point, to finally come together, to take decisive action to arrest the developing crisis of confidence and to initiate steps long overdue to rebuild trust, to strengthen ethical conduct and enhance accountability.
Professor Monroe was speaking at the North St. Andrew Kiwanis meeting Thursday evening. Raw sewage flowing at the St. Anne's Bay bus terminus. It's a major health threat for transport operators and commuters who use the bus center on a daily basis. The taxi operators claim they have been pleading with the St. Anne Municipal Corporation to get the problem fixed for several months.
Nothing has been done. As you can see, it's running in here, it's splashing, people stepping inside, the water coming into a car, people coming into a vehicle asking what is so stink, the bus park is stink, right? We cannot operate in a situation like this. So we need the authority to come and get it done properly. And if we come tomorrow morning and see it like this, we are telling the authority that we won't be working in the park as of tomorrow in a situation like this.
This ongoing problem has left the operators in dismay as even cleaning their vehicles has now become a tedious and expensive task.
Like people don't respect us as drivers, which we are very important people, you know. We have been taking the people from to and fro. Even when you have been driving around there, the filter has been reaching your tire. So by the time we have to go home, we have to wash off the filter of the tire. That is germs. We don't want those things.
What about your passengers?
The passenger, they have been talking about it, man.
They step into it, step in your vehicle?
Yes, they step into it and step into our vehicles. So it's most of the time our vehicles have been stink. You understand what I mean? Because when they come and step into the vehicle, then we have to be cleaning out the vehicle with our hands.
Now some news, while our news team was there speaking with the drivers, a cesspool truck came to fix the problem. After being taken to task about frequent power cuts recently, the Jamaica Public Service Company, JPSCO, is promising to reduce outages by 30%. This will be done through its Reliability 3.0 program, which was launched on Thursday. TVJ's Anthony Lugg reports.
For years, residents in sections of the island have complained about the frequency of outages and the time it takes for power to be restored. But that's all about to improve. On Thursday, the Jamaica Public Service JPS launched its Reliability 3.0 program. aimed at reducing planned and unplanned outages from an average of 29 hours to 20 per year.
I mean, we're going to start rolling out in specific areas, such as our smart meters, where we've rolled out in Portmore, but the intent is to go across the island. When you look at 29 hours on average for the average customer of JPS, I mean, that's not a continuous, not everybody experiences that. So if you live here in Kingston, you're going to say that I don't experience that. So clearly outside of some of the urban areas is where some of the largest outage rates or highest outage rates are being experienced. So we have to do some work in those specific areas to improve the country's overall reliability.
The program, supported by a budget of $16 billion, is also expected to provide quicker responses in areas with new technology and improve communication with customers. So, will customers be footing that bill?
When we look at funding our capital programs, we understand there's implications to rates, and that's why we've taken the capital program to a record-breaking $116 million. But we've worked that number into our rate submissions and our filings with the OUR, and we're trying to balance reliability with affordability, right? So while an average expenditure for JPS has been in the order of $50 to $60 million per year, we've almost doubled that amount to the $116 million. So there is a small impact to rates, but we're recognizing that there's also improvements in efficiency that are being had that are lowering some operating costs. So there's some offsetting costs. So it's not a straight on the backs of our customers.
Anthony Lugg, TVJ News.
Concerns are being raised about the lack of urgency given to disaster preparedness management across the island. Local Government Minister Desmond McKenzie says some mayors are disregarding the relevance of disaster preparedness management in their constituencies. Speaking at the 2018 Local Governance Conference held recently in St. James, Mr. McKenzie stressed that disaster preparedness should be treated as top priority.
Some mayors have not convened any disaster meetings at all. That is totally unacceptable. Mayors cannot extricate themselves from the responsibility of chairing the disaster committee for the parish because you are the de facto leader. And every month, the disaster committee should meet.
He is also warning mayors who are using disaster coordinators to do public relations to desist from doing so.
They should not be used to do PR work. There is too much work in the field of disaster to take coordinators to go plan civic function and whatever other functions you have.
Now for our Fact or Fiction feature. Fact or Fiction. Petrojam Limited was first known as the Petroleum Corporation of Jamaica in the 1960s. Find out the answer at the end of the sports segment of the newscast. We go down to international news. Tragedy struck an amphibious tour boat carrying 31 people that sank in a furious squall on the southwestern Missouri Lake Thursday evening. 17 people have been confirmed dead, including children. We have more from the CNN.
There's a severe thunderstorm warning issued at 6:30, which was about a half an hour before, I think, this video we're seeing right now. What did they know about the weather conditions when they went out?
Well, I think, and again, I don't know all of the details, but my understanding was that when the boat went in the water, it was calm. And then partway through coming back is when everything, when the waves picked up and then obviously swamped the boat.
What are the guidelines with which you operate under when it comes to severe weather?
Well, obviously we shouldn't be out there in severe weather. So again, we've operated, this company has been in business for 47 years and never had an incident. And we're absolutely devastated, and we couldn't feel, we feel terrible just for all the customers, friends, all the victims and their families.
And again, as you noted, there is one crew member who is still missing. Your message to the families of the people on board this vessel?
Well, we just, people are supposed to be able to go out for an outing and have a good time, and it should never end this way. So there's not much more you can say.
Have you had a chance to talk to the other boat, the people on it, the operators that did make it back?
Just one.
And
it was calm, and there was not any issues, and they got out of the water, and then it hit shortly thereafter.
Sad situation there. Still overseas, there's now growing pressure to bring U.S. State Department interpreter Marina Gross to Capitol Hill. This as she was the only U.S. aide beside the U.S. and Russian presidents in their private meeting. As we hear in this report from the CNN, Congress wants to know what she heard in that meeting.
When President Trump faced off with Vladimir Putin in private, right at his side was someone few knew. Marina Gross, an interpreter and his only aide in the room for the more than 2-hour one-on-one meeting. With Trump siding with Putin over his own intelligence agencies on allegations of Russian hacking,
President Putin was extremely strong and powerful in his denial today.
The calls are growing to find out what happened behind those closed doors.
This is a serious national security issue on the roll-up to another series of midterms, and all that I'm asking for is that we understand what our president agreed to. And if he won't tell us, then we should try to find some other way to figure it out.
That other way may be testifying in front of Congress, with talk now of subpoenaing Gross.
This is a moment where we should have access to what went on in that private meeting.
Some Republicans also joining the chorus.
I'm not saying it ought to be done in a public hearing, but we at least ought to get access to the notes that the translators keep.
Gross is a highly experienced Russian interpreter at the State Department, where she served for a long time. This photo taken in 2008 with First Lady Laura Bush. Appearing again last year in Moscow with then Secretary of State Rex Tillerson. For interpreters, discretion is paramount, expected to not reveal what they see or hear. So, talk of a subpoena is not just uncomfortable, but uncharted territory.
When in doubt, we keep it confidential. Unless a judge orders me to talk about it, I probably wouldn't. And this is a legal issue, not so much an interpreting issue.
And we go down to sports. With season number 8 just one fight away from completion, Ray and Nephew Contender boxing series creator Mark Kenny says plans are afoot to widen the talent pool with even the United Kingdom in mind. Kenny has acknowledged the dwindling pool of boxers to choose from for the popular boxing competition and says this discussion is in the ring.
I think we have to look back to the wider Caribbean, and I think we have to look to North America and Canada, and I think, you know, I'd love to look to the UK as well, because obviously there's, we're toying with the idea of looking at, you know, some of the diaspora Jamaican boxers who may be in the UK that we could bring back in. We're also looking at Mexico.
Meanwhile, Richard Frog Holmes, who will face Mexican-born Canadian teenager Ricardo Salas in next Wednesday's final, insists he will take a break from the series, but not before taking his first title.
Contender have putting me out there, you know, bringing me far away in a professional career. So, you know, it's been my 7th series of Contender, so I was just saying I'm going to just win this year and just give next year a break. You know what I'm saying? And just give somebody else a chance to come in and get a piece of the action.
And finally this afternoon, the answer to our Fact or Fiction feature. We asked, Fact or Fiction? Petrojam Limited was first known as the Petroleum Corporation of Jamaica in the 1960s. Well, that's fiction. Petrojam was first the Esso Kingston refinery in the 1960s. In 1982, the government purchased the entity and established Petrojam Limited. In 2006, 49% of Petrojam's shares were sold by the government to PDVSA Caribe. The 35-year-old establishment is currently located on Marcus Garvey Drive in Kingston. And that's the Midday News. I'm Herman Green. Join us at 7 for the Primetime News Package. On behalf of the news, sports, and production teams, good afternoon.